Alright, so let's try this again. Yesterday, I dropped a video tiering the Western Conference. There was only one issue. I forgot to place the New Orleans Pelicans in the tier that I had listed, and I looked back at my notes, and it turns out I crossed out their name and forgot that I crossed out their name when I rearranged the list, and yeah, it was a big mistake. But I mean, the overall rankings didn't really change. I'm just placing the Pelicans this time, and again, I'm not going to go into a full explanation for every team, otherwise this video would be 45 minutes long. So let's get into it. You see the tiers up on the screen. We got contenders, of course, the teams I think have a chance of coming out of the West. Knocking on the door, meaning that that particular team or whoever's in this tier needs to answer one or two questions for me before I consider them a threat to come out of the conference. And then we got the tier just a really good team, meaning that they have 3 or 4 questions for me before I even consider placing them in the next tier, let alone the contenders. Then we got the play-in squabble, the teams that I think are going to be battling from the 7th through 10th seeds for the play-in spots. And then we got the play-in hopefuls. Then we got the lotto teams. We're going to start with the contenders first. We got the Denver Nuggets, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Golden State Warriors. Nuggets, that's pretty simple. They're the defending champs. They have the best player in the world. They have their starting 5 intact for another season. Losing Bruce Brown is a big loss for the Nuggets. They're going to miss his bench production. They also lost Jeff Green, who, even though he's just a meh player, he was a key rotation guy for the Nuggets, played some big minutes in the finals too. They're going to be relying on some rookies and some second-year players to fill in that gap, but the game's easier when you play around somebody like Jokic. The Lakers, that one is pretty self-explanatory. I did a video about the Lakers. That was the last video that I dropped. I think as long as you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and the team is built properly around them, I think you're always going to be in the mix. The Lakers fixed the team post-trade deadline. They doubled down on that philosophy, brought back some of the guys they traded for, and brought in some upgrades at key rotational spots, made some low-risk, high-upside signings. Then we got the Golden State Warriors. As long as the trio of Draymond, Steph, and Clay remain intact, and Steph is a top 3 player and one of the only 3 players in the NBA, in my opinion, that have a case as best player in the world alongside Giannis and Jokic, I'm never going to count out this team as a contender. As long as that trio's together, they're 4-time champions. I think shipping out Jordan Poole and adding Chris Paul is going to help the Warriors immensely, especially if Chris Paul is willing to come off the bench, which I imagine he will. They still have the same starting 5 that was dominant during their finals run, that was still really good last year, and hopefully they don't have the funk and the fog of, inner team turmoil drama. So that's the contenders tier. The knocking on the door tier only has one team in here, and that is the Phoenix Suns. And for me here, it's just a matter of the Phoenix Suns gelling and some things that I think need to break right in order for them to be a more complete team. I think the offense will be fine. I think the worries about Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal overlapping with each other are overblown. I just think the Suns need to change some of their shot diet. Bradley Beal is somebody who gets to the rim more often than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker do at this point. So that kind of helps solve the one of the Suns' main engines needs to get to the rim more often. And they have that answer in Bradley Beal. The question also is DeAndre Ayton going to morph back into the big man that we saw in the 2021 playoffs, and then he carried that into the 2021-22 season. Will he go back to that player? Because if he's that player, that is a player that ties the room together. And then hopefully one of the many signings that they made to bolster their bench, hopefully some of those pan out. I like the move getting Eric Gordon. That will give the Suns, I think, a path to a closing lineup that they will like in the playoffs down the road. Going small, put Kevin Durant at the 4, Booker at the 3 even, and Eric Gordon at the 2, then Bradley Beal, then of course DeAndre Ayton, or insert backup big here in case Ayton doesn't, play up to his potential. So just 1 or 2 questions for me. I think the Suns have all the talent they need. They have 2 of the top 10 to 12 players in the world. They have a really good one in Bradley Beal as well. So we will see. Then we have the just a really good team tier. Basically, these two teams that I have in this tier right here need to answer a few more questions for me to place them in the next tier of knocking on the door. And by the way I list these teams, they are in order, even though I'm placing them in different tiers. First team I have in here is the Memphis Grizzlies, and there's a few questions that I need answered from the Grizzlies before I place them back in the knocking on the door type of tier, or the tier in between that I kind of had them in before the season started last year. One, Ja Morant is suspended for 25 games, so I know the Grizzlies will usually play well without Ja Morant, but you still got to integrate Marcus Smart, and I made a video on Marcus Smart. I think he's a perfect fit with the Grizzlies, but you still got to see how the 25 games will play out without Ja Morant. Then you got to reintegrate Ja Morant when his 25-game suspension is up. Then there's the question of the bugaboo that is the Grizzlies' half-court offense, which has been below average for most of the Ja Morant era. And that, to me, is the ultimate question when they make the playoffs, because they're a good team. They're well-coached. They have a bunch of young players that I like. They're going to make the playoffs. The question is going to be, what is their half-court offense going to look like? What are their best lineups going to look like to maximize the scoring output? Because they're going to be great defensively, but ultimately, it comes down to that half-court offense for me as well. So it's all about gelling, how the players will fit, how the players will adjust to a player like Marcus Smart coming to the team, and how fast that happens. And then just behind the Grizzlies, I have the Sacramento Kings here. And I know Kings fans might be pissed, like thinking, what the hell? We were the 3rd seed last year. Why are we so down far the list? There are a few questions the Kings need to answer. Like, one, we all knew wing defense was a need for the Kings this summer, and I don't know if they addressed it adequately enough. They traded for Chris Duarte. They brought on Sasha Vesenkov. We're going to get Keegan Murray in his 2nd year, but I don't know if that's enough to address the wing defense. It helped a little. They also brought back Harrison Barnes, but again, the Kings kind of needed that plus defender on the wing, and I don't know if there's anybody in that group yet, or maybe Keegan Murray becomes that guy. Also, how is Domantas Sabonis going to look this year? I know he had the broken hand he was playing through last year, so I want to be fair to him, but in the playoffs, he was taken out relatively easy by the Golden State Warriors. They gave him the 15-foot jumper. They played to his left hand. So I want to know how he's going to improve off that, because if he's taken out that easy again, I mean, the Kings offense isn't the same DHO, backdoor cutting, passing, threes everywhere, pace type of team that we saw during the regular season. Also, another thing is the Kings were really lucky last year in terms of how healthy they were. They were one of the healthiest teams in the NBA. Now, maybe some of that has to do with the fact that Mike Brown is an old school coach and he has these boys practicing all the time. But I don't think you can rely on the same health luck that you did last year. Then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will stay healthy, but you always got to be on the lookout for that, because injuries can just screw over your season just like that. So the Kings are still a good team. They're going to make the playoffs outright. I just think there are clear 3 contenders. And then the Suns just have so much talent, especially at the top end. And they have some really good role players, so I have them there as well. And then I think the Grizzlies are ahead of the Kings. It's no shame there. The Kings are still a good team. They're going to make the playoffs outright. And then we got the play-in squabble. And this is where I forgot to put the Pelicans, because I have the Pelicans square in here. But let's go in order. I have the Timberwolves. I don't know why I'm just really high on this team, and I'm really high on Anthony Edwards. The Clippers have to show me something this year. They have to prove that their 2 best players can stay healthy. We're in year 5 of the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard era. And at this point, this is strictly just, you got to show me your best players can stay healthy for a sustained period of time. Because if they're hurt, then the roster looks a lot more redundant when you don't have, 2 of the top wing players in the NBA. So they need to stay healthy. The Thunder are going to be everybody's league pass team. I think they're going to be squarely in the mix. They're going to be my league pass team too. I've seen some guys predict that the Thunder will make a leap this year and win 50 games. I don't really see that, because there weren't many 50-win teams last year, and the West is just a fucking monster. So 50-win teams won't be that easy to come by. But the Thunder are going to be squarely in the mix. They're a good team. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is awesome, and they have awesome young players and good coaching. Then we got the Mavericks here. And while the Mavericks, I think, did a good job addressing some of their needs, I don't think they addressed them adequately. I don't think they fixed their rebounding problem. I think they're still tiny. They made some very clever signings and trades, getting Grant Williams, signing Seth Curry to a very cheap deal is pretty good as well. And hopefully Luka is in shape, because he looks in shape playing in FIBA right now, because Luka's good enough by himself. He could carry the Mavs to a top 6 seed potentially, but I still don't believe in that defense, especially when Kyrie and Luka are your 2 best players. I still think the Mavericks are small, and I just don't know if, like in Jason Kidd's first year in the 2021-22 season, I just don't know if he can replicate having a top 10 defense like he did that season, because he didn't do it last year, and the Mavericks just don't adequately have enough defenders. Josh Green is good. Dwight Powell is smart. Hopefully Maxi Kleber is healthy, because he can kind of move his feet on the perimeter when he's switching in a pinch, but I still think the Mavericks are squarely in the play-in squabble. Then, of course, the New Orleans Pelicans. And this is all health-based as well, especially with Zion Williamson. And speaking of health, I mean, today, Trey Murphy, it looks like he's going to be out for a bit with a torn meniscus. And he blossomed last year in his second year. But this is all health for the Pelicans. And can they gel together? And can their best player, Zion, stay healthy? Because when they were healthy, and I made a video about it last year, the Pelicans were at the top of the Western Conference. So I have to see it with them first as well. Then we got the play-in hopefuls. We got the Houston Rockets and the Utah Jazz. The Rockets, I think, are going to be a lot more enjoyable to watch. They got some veteran players there that fit the style of Ime Udoka, who I think is going to bring structure to that team. So I think they're going to be scrapping for a play-in spot, but I think there is just a clear line between the play-in squabble tier and the play-in hopefuls. And then I got the Utah Jazz here as well. I don't think they're going to get off to the start that they did last year. I think they're going to kind of play more to their projected record, I guess. Walker Kessler, he's going to have an awesome second year. Lauri Markkanen's comfortable. The Jazz have good players, and Will Hardy is one of the great young coaches in the NBA, but I just don't think they have enough talent to be in the play-in squabble tier. Then we got the lotto teams, and I have the San Antonio Spurs here first. I'm going to be watching a lot of Spurs this year because, of course, they have Victor Wembanyama, but I'm looking forward to seeing Devin Vassell healthy, Trey Jones, and Jeremy Sohan and what they look like. The Spurs have young players that could project to be complementary pieces or secondary primary initiators from the perimeter, things like that, but none of them projected to be a superstar. And Victor Wembanyama, the Spurs have the guy that is the sun that everything revolves around, and I can't wait to see this young team gel together, because now they have the guy, and they have the young players to complement the guy, so they'll be fun to watch. And then, unfortunately, the last team, the Portland Trail Blazers, I actually think they're going to be the worst team in the NBA, accounting for both conferences. The Dame thing, of course, sucks, but that's just the way it is. But this team is not going to be good. Scoot Henderson will be fun to watch. It'll be cool to watch Chris Murray play. Matisse Thybulle, in another year where he gets to get a lot of reps. Anthony Simons and his pull-up shooting will be awesome to watch as well. And there's a few other things, but that's kind of where the buck stops. I don't think a lot of people are going to watch this team. I will, because I have a basketball channel and I need to talk about basketball teams. But, yeah, sorry, Blazers fans. I think you guys will be the worst team in the NBA. So that's it for the Western Conference tier list. The correct one this time. I had to do it right this time because my stupid ass forgot one team. But we all make mistakes. It's all good. We move. Stay tuned for more videos. I have some more team and player videos that I want to do before the season starts. And, oh yeah, we have the Eastern Conference tier list coming up soon as well. So we'll see you then.